I think we should all try to start from scratch, though. I think that some people, when they get into this industry, they have this vision, this lofty vision, this dream concept that they want that on day one. It doesn't happen.
No, it doesn't.
On day one. It happens from where you can start with nothing.
That's right.
Right? And if you can't make it start from nothing, then...
That's right. And so what's interesting is all my prior experiences, I've never been in the corporate world per se. So I've always been in a situation where we don't have a budget for things, where we don't have a specific protocol for things, where I have this freedom, creative freedom to do it. But guess what? You don't have any money to do it.
Yeah.
You can be as creative as you want, but you have essentially not very much to use. But I do agree with you that it is very important to start from nothing and start from the ground up, because you earn your stripes and you earn that respect. Like how could I command a team when I have never been in the dish pit myself?
Right.
Like I'm not afraid to get my hands dirty. In fact, we just had this conversation the other day. We had a leak in the kitchen, and my father was here, and he's like, "Do you know that there's been a leak in the kitchen for 6 days?" And I'm like, "Well, where is this leak?" He's like, "Well, I don't need you to do it." I'm like, "Dad, if I don't know where the leak is, how am I?" "Well, that's what the chefs are supposed to do." "Well, Dad, I also need to tell them where to look for it," and so forth. It's just interesting dynamics and learning to speak to each other in different ways. About 6 months ago, I adopted a British persona that freaked everybody out. They thought I was going through some type of midlife crisis.
Did you hit your head or something?
Possibly. What happened was I bought a house. That's really what happened.
I'd rather hit my head.
The two are pretty similar. But I adopted this accent because my mother was home visiting, and for whatever reason, when I spoke in this fake British accent, she was responding to it, and she was laughing and playing around, and I was like, I should just speak like this forever. But
I want people to listen, right?
Right. Yeah. And it's like, it's fascinating when you
Can we get it? Can we hear it? I'm curious. Let's get a sample.
Oh my goodness. Okay, you're putting me on the spot. So it's a fascinating thing that happens when you start speaking in English. People start understanding you better.
So that was great. Thank you for doing that. So keep going with your story.
Oh my goodness. So I've lost track of where we were.
You were just talking about how just communicating with your dad, right? And you were talking about the sink, and then you started using this English accent, and people started listening all of a sudden. Was your train of thought?
Yes, and a big takeaway from that is learning how to communicate. Ironically, I majored in corporate communications, and at the time, people were like, "Why are you going to school to learn how to communicate? You don't know how to talk." Yeah. Well, there's an art to it. Yeah. You have to be very specific in who you're talking to, when you're talking to, what is the purpose of your message, how are they going to perceive it. So you dive into the psychology of people, and then on that note, you have to really get to know that person. You have to be relatable, and you have to understand what is motivating this person. How can I communicate my message to him in a way, or her in a way that is meaningful to them, and that they will understand why it's important to me?
Got you. And
that also translates into the relationship building with my parents. But it's challenging because there is also a cultural barrier where, and I do speak Chinese, and I guess I'm a little bit blessed in the sense that I have no issues enunciating things. So people oftentimes give me way more credit for my mastery of the language. And so when I use a vocabulary word that's not quite correct, they blow up at me.
Your parents.
And our chefs. Okay. And I'm like, wait, just kidding. That's not what I meant. And then I go to my phone and Google Translate, what are all the other different words that mean the same thing? So
I love it. So there was a huge lesson in there, just like, again, just the how to communicate, right? And when you're communicating with somebody, you need to, the word is empathy, right? Get into their mind.
That's right.
Like, how can I use the words to make what needs to be communicated resonate the most with them?
It's the fine line between leadership and manipulation.
Yeah. Well, I mean, persuasion, I think, is the word to use, right?
Yes,
and persuasion is, what's the difference between manipulation and persuasion? Persuasion
the intention, I believe.
What's that?
The intention.
Exactly, right? And manipulation is getting somebody to do something without them even being aware of it, really. But I think persuasion is to say, hey, this is this is what I want to do for us. And I'm trying to convince you, I'm trying to sell you on this idea, this thought for us to go here together. Right. And I want to persuade you. I want to influence you to do this thing.
I want to present my points to you in a way that, and I need to make sure that you receive these points in the way that I intended them.
If you enjoyed this video, please help us out. You can do it by liking, sharing, subscribing, and hitting that bell icon. It really helps out. And don't forget, there's a complete archive of every episode with show notes at restaurantunstoppable.com.